One of the questions I have is, I think both of you made a reference to the fact that countries are the two obvious violators are Russia and China, that they're still testing. Why would they be testing? Maybe they're testing us, but I mean, this isn't rocket science. You know, you don't need engineers, and you need a salty old captain who's a lousy boat driver, it seems to me, and you can disrupt these cables and find where they're in relatively shallow water. Why do these continue to happen? Is it a test of our response? Is that what they're looking for? Why are they continuing to test? Because this really riles people up. I mean, it gets people fired up. There's no question about it. Why don't you start, Dr. Schmidt?
So I would say, you know, you've referenced and we've heard already the incidents that have taken place in the Gulf of Finland. First, I want to make it clear, the Baltic Sea is a center of these sort of incidents, in part because it's strategic for the Russian Federation and for NATO, but also because it's a relatively shallow body of water that has a high density of subsea infrastructure to begin with. So that's why I think statistically we're seeing more in the Baltic Sea than other locations. But one of the things I want to say is that in 2024, on Christmas Day, the Eagle-S, a Russian Shadow Fleet vessel, dragged its anchor through both telecoms cables and the S-Link 2 electricity interconnector connecting Finland and Estonia. And when it broke those, the Finnish authorities came out in helicopters, and their special police forces descended dramatically on the deck and seized the vessel and brought it into port. Part of the reason I believe that this specific infrastructure was targeted was because the Baltic states were trying to resynchronize or synchronize with the EU grid their electricity infrastructure, and finally get off the yoke, throw off the yoke of the Russian and Belarusian electricity grid. And so by severing that electricity interconnector, it increased the risk of that operation just planned for about 4 or 5 weeks later. But the other thing is the response, and that's, to your point, Senator Risch, I think the biggest thing here. The Finns put the captain on trial, put part of the crew on trial, and at the end of the day, they let them go because they said they didn't have the jurisdiction because they were in the exclusive economic zone and not the territorial waters of Finland. So that's a problem, but we saw a solution in Taiwan. I visited the prosecutor in Tainan, Taiwan just 2 weeks ago and had a long interview with him, who put this PRC captain of the Hong Tai 58 in jail after sabotaging the Penghu Island cable cut. And the reason for that was something called the results principle, basically saying that no matter where these cables go, outside of the territorial waters, exclusive economic zone or beyond, that the Taiwanese government can prosecute and put away these folks for doing this because it has impact on their society. And that's a lesson I think Finland can take from here and the EU can.
Yeah, you brought up something that's been really important to me, and that is I was really disappointed when I heard what happened in Finland. And, this jurisdictional question is just nonsense. I mean, we prosecute people all the time who send drugs into the United States but have never set foot in the United States. A good example of that's a guy sitting in jail right now in New York.
Yeah.
So I don't know what Finland has to do to change its laws to grab jurisdiction, but like you say, the causation factor seems to me to be very easy. I hope they'll do it. I hope everybody will do it. So I appreciate you underscoring that. And it was, like I said, it was incredibly disappointing. How many other countries do you think are in that same boat? I mean, I can't imagine we'd have that problem if somebody did that to us. We'd reach easily under the causation doctrine.
Yeah, I think that this is a great point. You mentioned Maduro, right, being in jail in New York. Obviously, that's a precedent that the Taiwanese pointed out to me. Like, if there was a scam artist in Cambodia that was preying on citizens in Taiwan, they would indict that person. They might not be able to extradite him, but they could at least indict him. And we certainly do the same thing against corrupt actors around the world, and sanctions on Russian oligarchs and all these sort of things.
Let me interrupt you for a second. Extradition is an entirely different issue than jurisdiction. I mean, extradition is simply a way of putting the habeas corpus on the guy and getting a hold of him. The jurisdiction is a legal principle that's entirely different than that. And again, I think the causation issue has been resolved decades ago, if not centuries ago. So go ahead and finish up.
I want to say the problem that you mentioned for Finland, So the first thing I had, my reaction in November last year when that was dismissed because of jurisdiction, I said this is going to happen again. And sure enough, on New Year's Eve, just 6 weeks later, last year, the Fitberg, another Russia-connected vessel, did another sabotage run through that same water. So we're going to have to find out what the Finns do this time to get that right.
Yeah, clearly.
Just
Mr.
add, Mr.
Go ahead,
Chairman,
if you want to comment on that.
It would help to have some U.S. assertion of jurisdiction. If we were using our sanctions authority, then you would be able to maybe apply some material support, criminal investigative capacity to this, and not get into arguments with, I used to be a law of the sea lawyer briefly at the State Department, and it gave me a headache. But I think you could avoid this not by just calling out others, but by asserting U.S. jurisdiction.
We have something in common. The Law Sea Treaty has given me many, many, many headaches. Senator Shaheen.